Welcome to the Flat Hat Insider Election Edition. I'm Lauren Stevenson. 47%. It's spread across the Twitterverse within hours of the release of the now infamous leaked video of Republican presidential candidate Mitt Romney talking to donors. In response, Romney had to call a late-night news conference. Was this a bad week or the beginning of the end for the Romney campaign? We'll have people on both sides of the aisle weigh in on the impact the video may have on the election. But first, the other political stories of the week. Number one, House Democrats protest a 6-week recess that began on Friday. They're urging Speaker John Boehner to reconsider the recess that allows members of Congress to campaign for the upcoming elections. USA Today reported that this is one of the earliest dates Congress has adjourned since 1960. Minority Whip Steny Hoyer says there is important outstanding legislation that needs to be dealt with, specifically the Violence Against Women Act. Speaker Boehner says it's the Senate Democrats that stalled the legislation process. President Obama filed a trade complaint against China this week. Critics say he is only doing so to look tougher on economic issues as the election draws closer. Mitt Romney and his VP choice, Paul Ryan, both criticized the president for waiting until close to the election to take action. And now to our top story, the aftermath. A video surfaces of Mitt Romney telling donors in Florida that 47% of the American people who will vote for President Obama are dependent on the government. Someone secretly filmed it back in May, and liberal website Mother Jones released the video last week. Romney's comments angered politicians on both sides of the aisle. Some Republican politicians and commentators have distanced themselves from Romney after the video surfaced. In the video, he said 47% of Americans will vote for President Obama no matter what. He said those 47%, quote, believe they are victims and believe the government has a responsibility to care for them. He later says he will not, quote, worry about those people, end quote, because he'll, quote again, never convince them that they should take personal responsibility and care for themselves. Here to discuss this challenging week for the Romney campaign and much more, Tyler Johnson of the College Republicans and Zack Woodward of the Young Democrats. Thanks so much, guys, for joining us. So, Tyler, Young College Republicans, how are Republicans responding to this, and do you think his statement was accurate?
Well, I think the Romney campaign's been very clear, coming out and saying that Governor Romney is campaigning for the 100%. I think that his words were given in a fundraiser that was supposed to be private to a bunch of Republican donors, and I think that all of the statements he made are completely accurate. His platform is for smaller government and lower taxes, and lower taxes doesn't really apply when you're already not paying them. So I think that his statements have been fairly straightforward, and I think that he's clarified by saying that he's campaigning for the 100% and not just the 53%.
And Zach, how do you respond to what Tyler said and also what Romney said?
Well, I think the video made it very clear that Governor Romney is in fact not campaigning for the 100%. He specifically stated that he does not need to get the vote of the 47% of low-income earners who are already voting for President Obama. And I, as well as most Americans, I believe, disagree with those statements that he made. In fact, all Americans do pay taxes. There are state-level taxes, property taxes, there are sales taxes that everyone pays. And I think Mitt Romney's vision of America is not the vision that most share, and we need a president that cares about all America, not just 53%.
So do you think this was a great week for President Obama just because of Romney making what a lot of people say was a gaffe? Do you really think this will help the Obama campaign?
I think it will help the Obama campaign. I wouldn't characterize it as a great week for Obama. I think it was a very bad week for Governor Romney and a bad week for the vast majority of Americans that don't see our country the way that he does.
Tyler, do you think this was a bad week or the end of his campaign, essentially, the beginning of the end?
Oh, I don't think so at all. I mean, we haven't had a single debate yet, and we won't for another 2 weeks. Gallup poll came out this week that said that the president and the governor are tied at 47% each, which means they're really going to be battling to the last day for that 6% of independents. So I don't think that the race is over at all. And I think that a lot of the independents who are sitting on the sidelines are waiting for the debates to make up their final decision. I think that this will be forgotten in a week or so, and I think it will blow over.
Now, the Romney campaign did want to do some damage control, and Democrats have jumped on it. On Friday, in a news dump, Romney released his 2011 income tax returns, and he paid roughly 14%, which is not nearly as much as the average American pays. Tyler, was this a good decision for him to release them, but it still shows that he paid less of a percentage, or do you think this will help him in the end?
Well, I think that, there's been widespread allegations that there have been years where he didn't pay taxes at all, and I think this showed that he had a 14.6 federal income tax rate, plus he gave over 16% to charity, which goes around to about 31%. I think that that's pretty consistent with the average American that is paying federal income tax, and I think that, it's a good move, it's transparent, and I'd like to see, more of that in the future from both candidates.
Zack, your response to that?
Well, in response to the charity issue, I think that it's great that the Romneys are paying that much in charity. I was happy to see similar results with the Obama's tax returns, and I hope that all Americans are willing to put that much towards charity. But taxes and the purposes of taxes go towards many things beyond charity. Those charitable donations aren't going to pay down our national debt. They're not going to make the investments in defense and infrastructure and education that our country desperately needs. And when it just comes down to it, the many Americans, the most Americans rather, that are paying more in federal taxes that the Romneys aren't, they pay charity as well, and they don't see nearly as low a rate as the Romneys do.
And I think it is worth noting that Governor Romney had, he made about over $13 million in 2011. The Obamas, it was under $800,000. Romney, according to Politico, it was about 29% of his income that went to charity. The Obamas, it was 21%. Just to throw that out there of their individual incomes. But Romney was not the only one who had a video issue this week, because President Obama, from 1998, that video came out on the web, courtesy of the Romney campaign, and it basically showed him when he was then an Illinois state senator, saying that he believed in redistribution. Tyler, do you think that was helpful? We should note that that was taken, a lot of people are saying, out of context. He was talking about redistributing wealth within government agencies.
Yeah, I mean, I personally have not seen the video, but I think that, these out-of-context allegations come out just about every time that a, unflattering video comes out. I think that politics is about spin, it's about message. I think all of these videos that pop out are going to be claimed to be out of context. So, I don't really know exactly what was said in this video, but I would assume that, President Obama has some not flattering quotes if we had all of his transcripts for all of his fundraiser speeches. So I think that, the issue is really moot. They're going to say one thing to their base of supporters that they're fundraising from and another when they're on national TV. And I just think that's the nature of the game, and that these allegations about this video or the Romney video from May are just way over the top.
Zack, what did you think when you heard about this video coming out? Maybe you saw it.
Yeah, I have seen the video, and as someone who has seen it, I do think that some of the reactions from the GOP and the Romney campaign are taking the quote out of context. Redistribution is a very vague term. Anytime you take $1 of tax money and put it towards $1 in some sort of government program, you're redistributing it. You're putting it in some place that it hasn't been before. And I actually did, if you see the whole video, I believe that most Americans would agree with a lot of the claims that President Obama, or then State Senator Obama, was making. He was talking about increasing opportunities for many Americans, but doing so in a way that's smart. He was very critical of specific government programs, specifically the Chicago public school system and the Chicago Housing Authority, for being wasteful and not accomplishing the goals that it hoped to do. So what I think the takeaway message from the video should have been was not that President Obama was in favor of some European-style redistribution programs, but rather smart government spending that increases opportunities for those who don't have them, while eliminating waste and being smart about how our tax dollars are spent.
Okay, and one last thing, just broadly, why should college students vote for President Obama?
I think if you look at the accomplishments of President Obama since he took office in 2009, you see a lot of advantages that we've gotten for students. We can now stay on our parents' health care plan until we're 26. Funding for Pell Grants has more than doubled. Teachers, nurses, and servicemen can now see student loan forgiveness after 10 years of paying their loans back. And so that's just a few items on a long list of accomplishments that President Obama has made to help increase the status of young people and make sure that we see a more prosperous country going forward.
And some critics, though, would say that it's been over 40 months of over 8% unemployment.
Yep.
And we're all looking for jobs out there. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, I'm one of those people who's very concerned. I'm going to be graduating in about a year and a half, and I definitely want to go right into the workplace. So I'm happy that Obama has kept a consistent focus on job creation, despite some setbacks that he's seen in Congress. So that by the time that I graduate, there will be more jobs in the private sector, and I will be able to pay back my student loans and in a way that won't get me in a bind because I can't find a job.
Okay, and Tyler, why should college students vote for Governor Mitt Romney?
I think that recent college graduates and college students are just as affected by the horrible economy, just like every other sector of the population. Over half of recent college graduates are underemployed or unemployed, and you know those facts speak for themselves. I think that 4 years ago there was a lot of optimism among our age group for then Senator Obama, and I think that he has largely failed to live up to that hype. I think that people our age are disillusioned with the economy. They can't find a job. They're moving back in with their parents, and I think that the realism of that overcomes a lot of the hope and change message that he had on his side last time around. I don't think you'll see the same turnout for President Obama from our age group, our demographic, and I think that largely that makes sense because people realize they can't find a summer job. They can't find a well-paying job when they graduate from college. They're fined for not buying health insurance, even if it economically doesn't make sense to do so if you're our age and healthy in some cases.
Well, thank you, Tyler Johnson and Zach Woodward. Flat Hat Online editor Zack Hardy joins us now to discuss the latest in Virginia political news from the week. Welcome, Zach. What's on your radar?
Hi, Lauren. This was a big week for former governors Tim Kaine and George Allen. Washington Post released a poll in the beginning of the week, and it seems to appear that Kaine has an 8% lead over George Allen. So 8%, not much. Also, just a Washington Post poll, not something. It's not no Gallup survey or anything. So there's no telling what exactly that 8% means because it's pretty far out from the election still, and it, what people vote for Senate is also really going to depend on who they vote for the president.
Absolutely.
So we're not really sure how that is going to come out yet.
This is the first time, though, that Tim Kaine has pulled above George Allen, though,
yes,
right?
It is.
So that was a nice little surprise for Tim Kaine's campaign. And you said something about Allen making comments at Quantico. You were telling me about that before.
Yeah. Allen held a rally at Quantico, basically where he went over his own campaign platform, and he also was particularly emphatic about how he would prevent any defense cut spending because, as we know, Quantico and the Newport News area and all those very, very entrenched in the military culture and really rely on government money from the federal government.
Absolutely.
And then,
anything else going on with
they also
Kaine
had
and Allen?
Their first debate in McLean, Virginia, Northern Virginia. Kind of what you would expect. Kaine did take a minute to latch on and criticize Romney's 47% comments, which is justifiable, I guess. George Allen wasn't really pretty vague or whatever. He didn't really deride or, defend his comments or whatever, and he mostly just focused on his own economic record. So.
And Tim Kaine's wife visited campus this week.
Yes, she did.
She was out there with all the students trying to get people to register to vote, and that was on the front page of the
Yes,
Flat
it was.
Hat.
Yeah.
Great. Anything else, Zach, going
That's
on?
it.
Zach's the man. He's watching the Virginia politics. Thanks so much, Zach. And
No
thank
problem.
you for watching. That's all the time we have for this edition of the Flat Hat Insider. Be sure to get all your latest news updates, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter. Until next time, I'm Lauren Stevenson.